Welcome to the podcast, and the song here is actually one of the first Hail the Sun songs I've heard. Because other than this song, there's 8 Ball Coroner's Pocket, which is also really good, but at the time I wasn't experienced enough to understand why it was so good. It's one of those weird things, if you're a beginner guitarist, these songs might sound good, but they also might not sound great as well. It's a weird sort of duality, double-edged sword, I guess. But, yeah, like, instrumentally, like, these tracks are often complicated in their own way, and also some interesting effects too. But Burn Nice and Slow, or whatever it's called actually, is it? Yeah, it's called Burn Nice and Slow. The format of it is. It actually is fairly simple, fairly straightforward as a concept, but it's also difficult to master. It's one of the craziest compositions, I think, from Hail the Sun there is, if I'm not mistaken. Because I can't really think of any other track that's like this, where it's simple in concept but hard to master. And we're just talking about the guitar track, like vocals no doubt are a niche as well, and the drum track as well, which is also great. Yeah, I just love everything about this track. Even what I understand of the meaning, which I'm pretty sure is about college years and just being too either reliant on someone and then tearing apart the relationship and choosing the bad ending essentially. And if you've seen the music video, which is also really good, it's animated with a bit of real life footage too. But yeah, like the bad ending happens in that. Yeah, and weirdly enough, it's a song that just makes me feel nostalgic for some reason, even though it's not that old. It is a fucking crazy song. So yeah, I love this arrangement. It's so good. It's just really that thing, I guess, where the way it's composed just makes it sound so interesting. Also, is it in E standard? Hang on. There's some nice and slow guitar playing both there's some, but what if it's not? Oh well, I told them not to. Okay, that's kind of poopy. Yeah, but from what I remember on it anyway, it's one here actually. Yeah, it starts with the random guitar sort of salad, and yeah. What I've loved about this is E standard. It's from easy chords as tab. But you start on the 5th fret, you start with an A note, and you're going into this G sharp, and it adds such an interesting twist because you're used to these sort of root notes. Like it's supposed to be A, is it? Yeah, I'm just like yeah. Yeah, I think it is supposed to be A. Yeah, G sharp. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's one that half step below, and this just adds such a nice twist to the already cliche power chords. It just works so well, and they're playing this as like individual notes, like in obviously a 8th timing, and yeah, like it's crazy, and they're doing this 3 times until the transition where it goes twice, and yeah, it's just worth looking at the tab if you're a guitarist. And then there's a harmony that adds onto that, and there's some emotional chords in the chorus. Is that right? It does sound right. That's not the chorus, is it? I suppose it is. And the interlude, yeah, that's quite nice too. Yeah, there's just so much to this arrangement that's pretty cool. It's one of the first Hail the Song songs Hail the Song? Yeah, just go with that. Hail the Song songs that I tried to learn on Rocksmith. And yeah, that's what got me into Hail the Song, because I realised that this is actually really impressive. It's really fun to play and it's great to listen to. It's a song with no vibe, unlike any other in the solo. Technically, it's a solo. It's more like a melody, I guess. is interesting as well. It literally almost sounds like it's from, I don't know, an anime possibly. It feels like it's from an anime, that's for sure, whenever I played it. It's also kind of hard to play as well. Yeah, I just love this track. So, let's move on. Now this life hack I've got is possibly one of the fucking coolest things I ever discovered. And I never realised it until now, and I didn't even write it down, which is even crazier. So I'll share it now, and it's literally insane. Because I've known this for quite a few years, like since 2018 probably. It sort of involves me throwing items, and as in, let's say like a tissue or a ball, and wondering like how the hell do you even measure where to throw this, because it's not easy to do. It's kind of difficult, and I've always struggled with throwing anyway, so you know, it just kind of becomes difficult, and I've never been able to figure out how to get the perfect throw until that point, where I realised that I experimented with this as well. I was throwing at how I thought I was supposed to throw, like, to get to the place. So, you have to throw, say, about, I don't know, 100 centimetres. Like, not much. But you don't want to overshoot it or undershoot it. So, whenever I did that, it tended to fail. Although this is actually probably the worst example, to be fair, so maybe don't do this for that sort of thing, but whenever I was doing it, I was underthrowing more often than not, and I tried to figure out why. It turns out you can literally mitigate this by applying a little more pressure. And by that I mean you throw with an extra 10 or 25% force. And this works for the other way too, with basically throwing as far as you want to or as you can. And that is important too. But since doing that, I have had literally zero problems in throwing things like across the room into a bin or something. You know, even though it's not exactly advised all the time, especially if it's something like quite, I don't know, like wet or breakable. It's generally not worth it, but for some things it is worth it in its entirety. Yeah, it's crazy fucking good, and it's something that's really helped. You know, I was like thinking about clothes. When I take my clothes off the airer, I will basically put them in the basket usually, but sometimes I have separate clothing to put somewhere else, and I put this on my bed, but I just throw it towards my bed rather than carry the entire basket and then take it off. And for some reason I'll just do that. But you know, I folded up the clothes, and you know, I was doing my throwing thing. I was measuring it myself, like thinking, okay, how far do I want to throw this? You know, I just want it to land on nearly the edge of the bed, so it's on the bed but not too far away from the edge. I mean, it's close on the bed, but the way I did that, 10 to 25% wrong. So I did it with an extra force, basically from what I think I should have thrown to what I should have actually thrown, and what I actually thrown was actually really fucking bad. Like, it would have fallen on the floor. So even that distance, it's probably even 100 centimetres actually, maybe a bit more. That distance is already quite difficult to make. Actually, it's not 100 centimetres, I'd say like 180. It's definitely high-ish, but yeah, I think you get what I mean. You know, that's the sort of thing we're aiming for. Just 10-25%, and that just works all the time. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, so that's the tip really, and I reckon it probably applies to sports as well. Because I just have this problem of underestimating the throw, and it probably even applies the other way. If you overestimate your throws, you could just underpower it by a said percentage. and it works every time. So yeah, I really like this life hack. It's surprisingly handy. So anyway, let's move on. Right, so for this first topic, it's actually been recorded on the 29th of November. I forgot the date for some reason. I'm going to talk about some of the important issues in the UK facing the country. And I think it's certainly an interesting one. And I tried to look for a list of the current problems in the UK, and I'll explain each point and why I'm putting them in this list. So, it's not exactly a tier list. I was going to say like F to C ranks, but I don't know. I'll say like biggest threat to life maybe, in between, no threat to life, actually rather little threat to life, and no threat to life. So we got this as a tier list sort of thing here, and I'll rank them based on where I think these lie. And I'm going by the YouGov list of the biggest issues facing the country in the UK. And yeah, so I'm not looking at that graph, it's shit. I don't know what the fuck is even representing like up here. Like, why is health down? Are you kidding me? Health is worse than it's ever fucking been. Like, COVID should have been spiking there. Like, oh, it was actually. Yeah, I'm wrong. That was like 75%. Immigration increasing, no surprise. Some reason it was bad in 2016. Not sure what happened there. Crime went up at 2020, but it went down, then sort of slowly climbing. And the economy, which for some reason people don't give a shit about. What? I can't even see it. Like, it blends in with the red and the pink. This graph is awful. Fuck it. Let's start with the list that they have, because they list a few different things. Actually, it's at the top. I'm being stupid. So some of them I won't comment on, so I'll actually put a not applicable. I'm not knowledged enough. There we go. Just made a new word. Not knowledged enough in this, so let's start with health. Health is a big problem at the moment, and I've had personal experiences where it's bad. I've heard people having bad experiences too, and even worse in some cases. But is it a bigger threat to life than other things here? I don't think it is, in my opinion. I'll explain. Even though the NHS is in a bad state and it has a lot to improve, and we should have it technically at no threat to life, it is a bit sort of meh, because it does work sometimes. And not all the time, but it can work. So I think I'd put it in the in-between. So there goes health. Can I bold these? Oh shit, I can. Yeah. Notepad is improved in Windows 11 anyway. The next one is immigration and asylum. So yeah, based on the data I've seen and the evidence, again this is all unbiased. People accuse me of being like lefty, but I'm not actually basing it on that. I'm actually basing it on the evidence that I've been presented, and immigration isn't even the biggest issue, to be honest. You know, I'd put it at no threat to life, because at the moment there's no evidence presented that would make it actually dangerous. You know, ignoring things like the religions, which, yeah, they can be varying degrees of harm. That's down to the person, because it's not actually religion. You know, if we're looking to religion for ways to enact violence, then you should be looking at Christianity as the worst offender, because it literally advocates for some of the worst fucking things imaginable. So, you know, there's a massive hypocrisy with that. So I'm putting that lower, and also immigration and asylum is essential for our economy, which will come up later. But as we know, it's not the best it could be. Crime. Crime, I think, is a threat to life, because with what Reform are doing, it's looking like crime will increase as more fascists get into politics and as more people start to, for some reason, suck up to them. But crime will only increase because of this. It will be a huge issue, literally. So because of that, I think we're in danger, literally. I don't see any way that crime can decrease in a world where we're not supporting people with their problems, preventing issues from happening to begin with. Like, it's a no-brainer. And yes, it is a threat to life, because it can even be someone you know. And as I've said, if I get made homeless, I'm going to do everything I fucking can to get under a roof, because I literally cannot stand being outside in the winter or summer. It's sort of hellish. Well, summer's a bit nicer, but winter is awful. But I have too many sensory issues, so I'm going to be one of the people responsible for crime if I get pushed into that scenario by a fascist dictatorship. So yeah, it is a threat to life. Next issue is the economy. I'd say that it is a threat to life. Yeah, I was going to say biggest, but then at the moment, even though we are at some of our worst, it's not, as far as I know, killing tons of people, like an actual genocide. But it is certainly making people suffer. Because I think people are going to struggle because of the current state of the economy. People are going to food banks, people are struggling to pay for anything. And that's going to have a negative impact on all the prior things as well, like health and crime. So they are going to be increased as a result, and they are going to become threats to life the worse it gets. That's kind of what's happening in America, what has happened even, because they still don't have free healthcare, which is frankly stupid. It just reduced costs, I think, is like the most they did, but still not enough, and we don't want to end up like that, where there's like a privatisation of healthcare, and the economy will just become more of a problem, especially with the cost of living crisis, where we can't even afford to rent houses, and we can't even afford to fit people into houses. It goes on and on, and there's too many problems. So anyway, that's the economy. Tax the rich, obviously. And speaking of tax, there is tax, but I'm not too knowledgeable on this. I don't exactly understand how it all works, so I can't comment. But I will say the rich do need to be taxed, and I would put it as a threat to life for the matter if they are not taxed, because they are literally controlling the narrative. Pensions, not applicable. Well, actually, no, I'm wrong. Actually, I do know a bit about this, but not everything, obviously. At the moment, the age for pensions has been increased, and that's bad for people because they can't retire as soon as possible. And I think it's about retirement. I could be wrong, actually. This is based on what I know of it, and pensions, I think, are also being sort of decreased in terms of payment as well. So not only are, when people are retiring, they're going to have to wait a bit longer, they're going to have to get a bit less, and it's like, what? That's going to fucking hurt people. So it sort of sits there with health in a sense, where it's bad, but you still get money at least. That's the problem. But it could be better. That's always the point here. The next topic is education. It's a difficult one, but I think it can be a threat to life. Weirdly enough, it's above health, but it's also below the economy. So I'll put it just above tax. Education is a threat to life because of the issues that are around it at the moment. Schools having disruptive children and increased crime rates in children as well. That's causing problems, and the education system is partly to blame for that, because there's not enough being done to make it engaging, there's not enough being done to make it accessible as well, because there are too many problem children who will just create more problems. As long as the education system is shit. I was quite fortunate to have an education system where disruptions were only like a once a day thing. Apparently nowadays I think it's like every day. So because they force like special needs kids as well in the same class, there's actually no room for learning anymore. And on top of that, I never even got taught things about sex education, like protection, or even things like I don't know, like specific sex education. But also, I was never taught anything about LGBTQ plus. There's sort of one of those things that is sort of kept hidden, and it didn't help because I was actually bisexual as a child. Yeah, sexual as well, because that happens. I wasn't influenced, I wasn't witness to anything at that point. It just happens, and a lot of children go through this as well. But because of that lack of education, I never realised, and so a lot of my unhappiness probably didn't help things, and I stayed in the closet for so long because I didn't realise what this was. Literally wasn't taught anything. So education in the proper way, and also teaching critical thinking, which can also help a lot of these problems here, are essentially, they're crucial to the education system, and yet they're not taught. So yeah, it is a threat to life. Yeah, the education system, with how it is going to fuck us. It's going to fuck elders, it's going to fuck children that are born with today's children. By which I mean that their children, not the other way around. A bit confusing. You know what I mean, when they turn into adults, they start to make children, they're going to have the same problem. So this is why education is important. Now the next thing is family life and childcare. I don't know enough about this, to be honest, but I'll go by what I know and what I've been through. I don't think it's great, because I think there are ways that these can improve. I had an okay upbringing. It wasn't the worst it could be. I certainly witnessed abuse and stuff, and anger issues, but I've seen parents just not take care of their children, even expose them to real fucking weirdos. I remember as a child there's this weird fucking scenario where two of my male friends tried to get me to suck their dicks. Like, what the fuck? How does that even happen to begin with? Like, that has to be a learned behaviour. So yeah, some of these places, like, no doubt where they go to clubs and stuff, they're probably compromised in that way, and as a result, that is a form of childcare, by the way. It just becomes a problem. But I think family life could be improved if we built more houses and allowed children the space to explore not just themselves but the world. Being able to explore the outdoors, having a garden, having a front lawn. Like, there's so many different ways to improve life, and I think certain people shouldn't even be in houses. And I think if you're a single person living in a 3-bedroom house, you should be fucking kicked out. No joke. I think that's atrocious. Because that could go to a family who needs it desperately, and you could get families out of flats where they don't belong, because that's going to cause problems for people in the flats. So you never want that. So yeah, of course, family life and childcare are in quite a bad state. So where would I put it? I think, because it sort of ties to education as well, I think I'll put it as a threat to life, if or not. Yeah, people are struggling. If you're incentivizing stealing and stuff, there's also that problem, by the way, where parents shoplift just to get a profit and give their children a good life, to go on holiday, to give them presents at the end of the day. And yes, what they're doing is wrong, but they don't have any other choice. So it's like a no-brainer. So anyway, next thing on here is the environment, or what I call it climate change. No surprise, biggest threat to life there is, because this is such a huge issue. Temperatures are increasing, there's more gas emissions in the air, there's so many different problems around this, there's so much deforestation around the world, which yes applies to the UK because we're making them as well, making that happen. Fossil fuel industry is allowed to operate and stuff, and yeah, it's all sorts of disgusting because it is. And it is the biggest threat to life because it can cause a mass extinction if we're not careful. But it can also flood our coastlines, so people along the coast in the UK can literally be fucking homeless. Not within like the next 5 years, I think, but probably 10 years, because the warmer the planet gets, the more underwater we'll be. And eventually it'll just reach the top, I think. You mustn't forget that on the top and the bottom of the Earth, there's literally a fucking 2 icy islands, essentially. Big fucking countries, rather, not icy islands, but countries. And if those melt, we're fucked. There's no temperature control, and we're just on the water. So good luck surviving that. Anyway, the next thing is Britain leaving the EU. I remember Brexit, but I don't think it was a good thing. As much as it hasn't changed too many things, admittedly, at least from what I've noticed, I'm not happy about it. I think they should have stayed in the EU. It would have been better for us, and we could have supported our allies more, but it seems like a ploy by Russia at this point. So I'll put it as a threat to life, so let's call it Brexit. That's what it was. Yeah. Threat to life. Next is transport. Would it be a threat to life? I mean, with the frequency of everything else, like, yeah. I think it would be. Maybe it's an in-between, though. Because it does cause climate change, but it also causes many other problems that kills wildlife. There's too many people parking, and there's not enough spaces to park. There's just so many problems around this shit that it gets annoying, and then you got fuel emissions as well, and the lack of electric cars that, no doubt, make it worse. So I think there is certainly a threat to life, but at the same time it isn't exactly killing people directly. There are probably going to be more accidents, for sure. I don't know. So I'll put it in between, but above health, probably. Plenty of places to improve, but it isn't the worst thing for us at the moment. Next is welfare benefits. Interesting, because I consider this a pretty important thing. Because if we're talking about benefits, we're talking about things like disability benefits, work pay sort of thing. What is it, work pay? Job seekers allowance, that's probably what I'm thinking actually. Yeah, just like ways that people are supported when they're just providing, essentially. Like if they're working or getting enough, they're probably entitled to something. If they're disabled, they're entitled to disabled benefits. If they're unemployable, they're just entitled to benefits. Hello. And I'm pretty sure there's another one, but child benefits sounds to remembered. They're quite important, but we're not paid enough, to be honest. And I think there's a child cap for benefits, which is a bit stupid, to be honest. I don't know why they did that. So I consider it a threat to life when it gets changed. So I put it as, I think it's around the same as economy. Yeah, it's about the same thing. Yeah, places to improve for sure, but it is a threat to life when they start lowering it or removing it, because we can't afford that. It's going to kill people. So yeah, that's a threat to life, and people's quality of life will just get worse as well. And there's some other random ones here. There's 2 more left, which I don't know if it's true. I find that a bit weird. Yeah, I forgot to say health. NHS needs improving and stuff. But yeah, that still makes it a threat to life. For some reason, Afghanistan is here. I don't know why we're still talking about that. Like, let me check on it. Oh, it only existed from 2011 to 2013. Okay, so it doesn't apply. Defiance and terrorism. Defense, not defiance. What the fuck, defiance? What's it say on the graph? Oh, it only existed in 1 point. Great. But let's talk about terrorism anyway, because all of this is a type of terrorism, essentially. The fact that the only thing that isn't a threat to life is immigration and asylum shows what a shitty state this country is in, and how much worse people's health are getting. This needs to change. And people would just cause terrorism. It sort of relates to crime as well there. That's technically a crime. But it's going to increase because of all these problems. And we've already seen cases of this happening already. The increase of Muslim violence. We've seen a Muslim person kill 2 Jewish people. I think it's 2, I think it's 5 actually. And then got shot dead himself. Like, Jesus Christ. And then people will blame it on religion itself rather than the person, because for some reason people can't figure out that people are just fucked up in the head. That's the crazy thing to me. So it ties into health to an extent. Anyway, I think I've talked enough on this and ranked it somewhat fairly. Some of the biggest issues, and it sort of comes down to a political party discussion after this, so let's go through the list. Start from the bottom. Not knowledge enough. Nothing is there, somehow. No threat to life. Immigration and asylum. Little threat to life. Nothing. In between, transportation, health, and pension. Threat to life, crime, economy, welfare benefits, education, family life and childcare, tax, and Brexit. And finally, biggest threat to life is the environment. So yeah, that's a tier list, for sure. Well, some sort of tier list anyway. Yeah, we've still got many problems. But it sort of makes you wonder, because this is an unbiased outlook on this sort of thing based on evidence, and also what I've mentioned here, the consequences of it getting too bad. So, the biggest threats to life, in terms of how it's addressed per party. Let's start with the worst. Let's start with reform. Reform will be worse for the environment. For sure they have something in their manifesto about helping fossil fuel companies and obviously deporting immigrants, which will cause more environmental destruction. They're also worsen crime as a result of a lot of these policies. They're worsen the economy because they're trying to privatise healthcare and take away benefits, which is the other thing. Education will get worse because they'll try to change the narrative and what can be taught. They'll make family life and childcare worse because no doubt we'll end up to enslavement at some point. And then tax will get worse because they'll tax the poor and just exempt the rich. Brexit already happened and they'll keep it that way, so that's going to be that. Sorry, I can't control that. Transportation, yeah, they'll make that worse too. Although there'll probably be less vehicles on the roads, probably, because people won't be able to afford it at some point, let alone run it. So it could be a good thing. Weirdly enough, the only good thing. The NHS, bad. They'll make that an immediate biggest threat to life, because it's privatised. Pensions, they'll probably make that worse too. And immigration and asylum, yes, they'll make that worse. So yeah, reform are probably the worst candidates for addressing these problems and solving them. And that really goes to show something, because when you are taking an unbiased look, it's literally that. Conservatives though, I think they're about the same, literally. The only things I could see being better are maybe the environment, and because I did see that they had something addressing it, but not exactly. Education might be better. Tax might be better as well. I don't know. It's hard to say because I don't know enough, and the same with Labour, I'm not sure because it's been changed so much. Lib Dems I'm not sure about because again I'm not educated on it. It's mainly reform of the Green Party, to be honest with me. But the Green Party I do know a fair bit about. And there's another thing that's not put here, actually, equality. Equality and I was trying to think, yeah, just equality and inclusion. So yeah, there should DEI, I guess. So what about DEI? Where does that lie in the biggest threat to life? Let me think. So if it can get so out of hand, and obviously as it is now, I reckon it could get really bad. And because again, like the education system has failed us in that sense, rather, and the NHS has failed us. Like, it is a threat to life as well. Like, it can actually kill us, if we're not careful. Because there's high rates of suicide in autistic people. No, not disabled people who just commit suicide because they just can't fucking cope. And they probably can't afford anything either because of the above things as well. There's so many different problems to not having equality and inclusion. And reform, weirdly enough, wouldn't make it the biggest threat to life, but they would still make it a high threat to life because they're trying to take away these things. The fact they celebrated Diwali was so fucking weird, but that's a good thing, though. That's the fact they're celebrating it. Can't deny that. That's the only good thing, other than transportation, possibly. But yeah, but let's talk about the Green Party, because I do have an understanding of this now. It's good to say your party, but I also don't know much about them, just know that they're a joke. Green Party, how would they address the environment then? They'll do it properly. It's not the priority, so I'd say it's like a little threat to life. They'll definitely improve it. But they're focusing on other issues first, which is great. And with the manifesto, I think, anyway, from what I know of it, and the policies they're trying to push, yeah, it's looking pretty good. Crime will definitely be reduced to a little threat to life, and that's probably where it should be anyway. Ultimately, obviously no threat to life is better, but that's impossible. So they'll improve it, that's for sure. The economy, yes, there'll be no threat to life in their policies. Because they'll tax the rich, that sort of also addresses tax, but they'll not tax people as much, I don't think. So it allows us more room to have a better living standard and address the cost of living. So yeah, of course, and they'll also increase benefits as a result of that. So they're redistributing by taxing the wealth, and that's important. That's why it becomes like no threat to life. It doesn't hurt anyone in the end. It only serves to benefit people. Oh, that's the crazy thing, yeah. Education, I haven't really heard much on education from the Green Party, but I do know from the Bold Politics podcast. They did talk about it briefly, and I think there's a sort of want to bring back like communal things and stuff for children. They can sort of hang out and meet friends and stuff. But also I think there's a call for inspiring critical thinking as well, which is a positive. So I'd put it as like little threat to life. I think it can be improved. And also there is a narrative about talking about disabled people and stuff in that, and special needs kids even, and helping them. Family life and childcare. I've not really seen it mentioned, but it does tie into other topics here, like economy and welfare. Tax. I think it can be improved with the Green Party, for sure. And I think they'll just improve naturally, so it's like a little threat to life. They wouldn't fuck it up badly, I don't think, like reform would. Then there's tax, which I think they could probably do better. Obviously, they're taxing the wealth, so they're immediately doing better than anyone else. So far, like, from what I've heard anyway, just objectively, there's like no threat to life at all with what they're proposing with tax. It's not going to make CEOs like somehow I can't remember the term for it, but like package up and move. Well, they literally can't do that. I'm pretty sure it's illegal, and that's also just not theoretically possible. So no, they're not leaving. They're going to have to pay. Even though it's like a 1 to 2%, but that's fucking nothing compared to what they get. That's the thing. It's such a good idea to tax it off. That it's just surprising that Labour hasn't done it first. And the next thing is Brexit, and I think there was a discussion about joining the EU, which I thought was interesting. I'm not too sure though if they're going to do it, because again we've got bigger problems, and I think it's like an in-between at this point. You know, I'm not going to say like no to join the EU, but they're also not going to talk about it yet. Next is DEI. Should be no surprise, but yes, there'll be tons of that. And because there's probably going to be better laws as a result of the Green Party getting in, I'd say it's like no threat to life. Because all equality literally serves to bring peace and help us live comfortably. It's a no-brainer. So yeah, of course it's going to help us. Again, that's what it's there for. Disability, equality and inclusion. That's what it is. The next thing is transportation. Yes, there'll be better transportation because when we're done with the social issues, and Green is done with it rather, then we'll be able to move on to supporting the transition to like electric vehicles and more sustainable transport, supporting more trains, maybe even like speed trains. You never know. But also like solar energy, which no doubt adds to that as well. So many different ways it can help, I think. And of course it's going to improve, so I'd say little threat to life. If the only downside I think being there could be a dangerous consequence that we're not aware of, but we'll wait and see. Health, NHS, yes, that'll be helped with the Green Party. I'm pretty sure they've talked about funding the NHS before and getting us back on track with that sort of thing, and also like helping with our overall health. Obviously by virtue of that, but also renationalising water, I think they said. Zach said it, and that's going to be good for us. Pensions, I don't know, I haven't heard anything about it, so it stays in the in-between. Immigration and asylum, no threat to life still. Now, essentially it doesn't really need to change much, but they do need to rehouse people because it does tie into crime rates if depending on the housing. Yeah. So that's like an unbiased look on the biggest issues in the UK in terms of politics and which party is supposedly better for each and how I've ranked the issues at the moment. So yeah, I'll say we're in the right state of chaos, but the Green Party looks like the only hope once again. So there we go. That was the debate ones wrong. So Christmas may actually be dead. I can't believe I'm saying this, but like compared to the prior years, like even back in lockdown, which obviously you probably would have anyway. But there's like so few decorations. I was travelling through my hometown earlier, and there's also a really nice sunset. I want to go into that first. Probably the most beautiful fucking thing I've ever seen in nature, hands down. Because it was sort of raining a bit, and there were grey clouds, and then it was like 4 o'clock basically. We sort of left the hometown. Obviously, I'm in a car and with other people, and yeah, we're just going along, and then I'm looking at the sky, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, there's a grey cloud covering everything else on like the other side, but there's something else going on. And what was happening, it seems, is there's a fucking sunset. Of course, like yeah, at this time it is in winter. But what was so fascinating to me was just the variety of colours that I saw in this sunset alone. It's almost like it's fucking photoshopped. It was so good. I've never seen anything like it. Because it's like a bright blue sky, a yellow sort of tinge at the bottom, which also is pretty unusual for a sunset actually. Is it often like orange or pink, but this time it's blue and yellow. But that didn't matter because the clouds, of all things, were a variety of colours. There was yellow clouds, whereas closest to the sun, obviously. There were orange clouds, sort of closer to the sun. Then there were pink clouds, which were interesting because you have now 3 colours, but there was also a 4th and a 5th. Purple clouds, which are a bit darker than normal purple, technically. But you also had grey clouds, and they were like in front of these other massive grey clouds above. And it's just a scene unlike anything I've ever fucking seen. I almost took a picture and sort of wish I did, but I'm a bit awkward about doing that in front of people. I don't really like showing my interest to people, it's just, I don't know if it's sad or what. But this is like the most beautiful sunset I've ever fucking seen because of the effect it had on the world. Because it also changed colour on the reflection as well. Like, it depending on how much light there was. You'd either get covered in yellow, you'd get covered in pink, or even coloured in orange. There's such a variety of colours that it's actually kind of insane. Never seen anything like it. And, you know, I was sort of feeling a bit rough that day as well, so today, and so that was good to see. I would say it's kind of not comic relief, I don't think that's the right term. It's like one of those things, it's like therapeutic, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, literally one of the best things I've ever seen in nature. Yeah, it's just so crazy to me. Like, how have I never seen anything like this? I've seen like amazing sort of gradients of sunsets and cloud colours, but I've not seen anything like this. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so talking about Christmas again, unfortunately. I noticed that there was a lack of decorations this year, just all around. Like, I'm trying to think, like, how many houses did I see that were decorated outside? I can only count about 5. Yeah, I've been looking quite closely as well. Yeah, I can only see 5 in my hometown. There's also a few where I live currently. But there's not many anymore. That's the surprising thing, but also it's not surprising. Because it sort of turns into that topic about I just talked about, politics. It's just, things are so shit at the moment for people that the quality of life is decreasing. So we're not going to see like many fucking Christmas lights, and then people who are no doubt there doing like this anti-immigration bullshit are probably realising that they don't want to be part of this thing, this holiday for some reason, or those that do are just wondering why the fuck nobody's celebrating it. It's kind of like a herd mentality in that sense. You know, they're looking for approval from others like them, but they seem to think, and maybe this is also part of the plan, that not putting them up is also an indication of the country being quote-unquote taken over. Jesus Christ, if there's anything taking the country over, it's woke. Literally. And that's probably one of the reasons why this is happening to begin with. So yeah, it's a complete bullshit really. I do miss seeing Christmas decorations, honestly. It's one of those things that sort of livens it up a bit. But then I just can't really... I don't know what to say exactly. And it's not all that sad, but at the same time, it's a cost of living crisis, and we can't be expecting people to put up decorations, have them on all the time, when they could barely fucking afford it. It's just ridiculous. And this further proves the problems, and it genuinely baffles me still that people are voting reform, when the most obvious choice here is to vote for someone who can cut your bills in half, who can literally redistribute the wealth from billionaires back into the economy. And Reform aren't doing that. They're not doing anything like it. And, you know, they're constantly attacking disabled people, queer people, and immigrants. Like, you tell me what one's causing more problems for the economy. I'm waiting. So people might be wondering if I saw that r/vegan post about people being paid to discredit veganism, and yeah, that's a yikes. But the thing is, I don't know if it's actually credible or not. Because the problem is, the thing with like r/AMA and stuff is that you don't need any fucking proof to prove that you are this thing. So immediately we've got this problem where anybody can just go on there, claim to be something, and then answer questions based on it, including this. So there are some massive problems here, just from the beginning. But it wouldn't surprise me if this is actually real. And I'll explain this in a hypothetical situation what my reaction is. You know, if this is proven that people are being paid to discredit veganism. It doesn't surprise me. Once again, I just find myself not baffled, but just annoyed the fact that people are this corrupt to begin with. Like, Jesus Christ. I imagine being so desperate for money, you'll take money from a billionaire who doesn't fucking care about you, by the way, who will ruin your life, even paying you this money, by the way, and just fuck over everyone else in this, like, as a result of it, like, I don't know, like, knock-on effects, I guess. It's absolutely baffling. And this even just brings to question, like, why the hell would you even take this offer anyway? You're taking money from a corrupt industry with supposedly this NDA that they mentioned, and yeah, you're just doing the wrong thing for bad people. Like, are you fucking kidding me? That means you're corrupt as well. What a fucking joke. It is really shameful. And also we should be favouring evidence, because we need to incentivise a proper system, RL, like critical thinking. We need to encourage it. We need to get it working. And so you really need this to have consequences just naturally rather than socially and online. You know, this is why I think channels need some sort of emergency system in the case that something like reform happens, for example, where you literally need to, like, bloody get your arse into gear and make a video explaining to people, educating people on these topics that are so crucial to our survival. You need every single person to be aware of it. And because nobody's doing that, well, what do you know, the world's worst place, thanks. So it's terrible. Like, Jesus Christ. I genuinely can't understand this. Do people really not think anymore? It's often a question I ask. And honestly, I don't know. It's very hard to say, but with this sort of content, as much as I can respect coming out and sort of feeling proud of it, about supposedly ruining people's lives and ruining the planet, like, just for what? For some money? Like, it's fucking absurd. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, Jesus Christ. It's just bad. So I really don't understand that, really. It's a bit confusing. Yeah. I'm not even sure what's out at this point. It's just bad. It's just, one thing after another, and it just doesn't surprise me. If I'm being honest, it doesn't. I just wish there was an alternative way, I guess. It's just surprisingly bad. And you know, this, again, we need critical thinking. We need to be, and everyone should be doing this, by the way, not just vegans. people who are anti-religious, people who are fighting politics, they should be using critical thinking and encouraging it as a tool, because we won't survive without it. At this point, the way the world's going, there won't be any way to survive without this stuff, basically, and we're just going to be fucked. It will cause way too many problems, as it currently is, hence this post that just suddenly come up. Like, it's so dangerous. Yeah, I can't fathom really why the hell people are just taking these fucking offers. Like, that is corruption. It's like taking an offer from what? This is a hypothetical here. Like, I don't know, human trafficking, and you get like an NDA and stuff. It's like all official. Maybe it's Elon Musk, for example. And you're taking an offer to allow human trafficking for like what, a fucking £1 million or something, and you're allowing this cunt to do Neuralink when you could just not take the money, expose them, get media attention, no doubt get money to protect you because you'll fucking need it if they sue you. And yeah, like, we're better off knowing these facts, and when that's out there, the world is going to be a better place, and then you can get more money in turn because people are realising, oh, Elon Musk is a cunt. So yeah, problem solved. Yet people are stupid enough to take these offers. It just baffles me. Anyway, before I die of a heart attack and maybe a stroke at the same time, I'll stop this discussion, move on. Hello and welcome to another episode of Kill Your Throat with your host, Throat Killer. Or rather, how to kill your throat. Anyway, let's talk about the World of Warcraft housing system I saw recently, because as a former player of that, not an old player, but a new one, I've joined around BFA, sort of end of Legion times, I think, and I'm not really sure about this housing system. I'm still skeptical, because even though I hate the Final Fantasy XIV housing system, just to make that very clear before people accuse me of it, of shit, I don't really like it that much, because it's such an outdated graphic style that it just kind of doesn't work. I gotta admit. It's just a bit weird to me. Because the graphics could be updated and stuff, but they're not. They're just the same sort of Nintendo 64 graphics that they've always went with, and it just feels lackluster as a result. Doesn't surprise me either. I get there might be a niche for that, but it doesn't really help. It makes things sort of lacking. So I saw JP watch this on Twitch, watch it live, and I'm not really going off his reactions, but I'll put some notes down. Not sure I like the public neighbourhood system versus closed. I can see benefits, but my god, do not fuck up like FFXIV did. Yeah, that's a big concern. Because I think what players want in the end is a way to get their own house, rather than have it be seen by anyone. Like, they want a house that isn't necessarily public, but be able to have one to begin with. You know, just think like Genshin Impact's Serenity Teapot, which was actually really good. Actually one of the few parts I really fucking enjoyed. It was fun to go in that house and have your own place. It was absolutely crazy. And I think if they don't do this sort of system, it's going to fail. Because I see people saying it's going to be a big deal, but I don't think it is. They fucked up their reputation so much that I don't see how it's viable to even have more players come because of just the housing. It's one thing I don't agree with JP on. Housing is like very little to the gameplay compared to what currently is there. You know, in Final Fantasy XIV you have to do gameplay to get housing, essentially. In World of Warcraft you don't seem to have to do much, which is kind of like, yeah, it's probably better to have a system like that, to be honest. But I don't think it's going to really appeal to many players for some reason. I just get the feeling it won't. And what else is there? So I'm not sure how the system works exactly. It seems like it's good that you can search for players. I really like that. That goes without saying. You don't have that in Final Fantasy 14. That's a good system from the start. Excellent job. What else? I think that's it, other than just confusion about the neighbourhoods and what it means. The next thing I wrote down was, did they say both factions can buy a home? Weird. How am I supposed to display my orc head in an orc neighbourhood as a human? Yeah, literally. I've got the World of Warcraft equivalent for the KKK basically, but for orcs. I'm just kidding. But, I don't get that, because it's a faction fucking war. That's what the fucking game is about, and they've just forgotten this again. So you're having two factions joined together in this housing system, like, what the hell? And as far as I know, they haven't even addressed one of the bigger problems, in my opinion, which is being able to play all classes on one character. And not to mention, like, on another faction as well, like, are you kidding me? Like, what is going on there? I do not understand that shit, to be honest. Because it's a no-brainer to really have, obviously, joint faction stuff, but you don't need it to this extent, I don't think. If anything, it just feels out of place now. I think because I'm just not sure. I don't know how I feel about sharing, for example, like an alliance neighbourhood with Horde members. I get the appeal from a visual sense, but it's kind of dumb to do that in a way. Well, I guess it's hard to balance it for players when they want to obviously have that, despite being on the opposite side for other gameplay reasons, like, but then that needs addressing. Like, you just get led to these other problems in the end. So I'm not sure about this as a faction standpoint and that. Because that's sort of the appeal for World of Warcraft, but since that's going, it doesn't seem to be a thing. Like, why not just dismantle it? Make the factions like a background thing. Like it should be. If you're going for a war setting, make it a war setting, but if you're not, don't. The war can literally be with other factions, as it always has been. Other problems as well. So I don't understand why they're not changing it. Anyway, the next thing I liked about this is probably the scaling slider. It's going to have some funny results for sure. You're going to have like Volpira or like dwarves and stuff just struggling to get to the telescope or something. I saw the telescope in that. So that's going to be kind of funny. / cry. What else? I think that was it for like the things I liked. I guess some of the scenery is nice, because I couldn't really complain much about it, even though it's low graphics still. Scenery is kind of appreciated. But then I have to bring up this final thing, my final thoughts on it, despite seeing all of it and not being that impressed. Yes, it has a lot of customization. Yes, it's doing things right. But is it what the game needed? No. Because I know that the garrison system was disappointing as fuck, and everyone wanted player housing after that came out. The problem is, the game has far bigger problems. And that's far more of a priority for myself as a former player, if I was ever to play again, to focus on. Housing, I don't give a shit about. I'm creative, I'm an artist, or try to be anyway. But I don't really see myself joining it just for that. Like going on another subscription, going on another fucking tangent with another game, doing that shit. Like, no thanks. If it's not a file system either, then what's the point? I'm not even keen on the housing here in Final Fantasy 14. In fact, it's absolute garbage compared to World of Warcraft here. But I'm not playing it for the housing. I'm playing it for the gameplay. And that's the thing that we have to realise here. Because even though you can have some fun with the housing, and I do silly shit as well, it's not going to be the biggest thing about it, about the game. Now, I could be wrong, and hopefully I am wrong, but the way I see it, this is not drawing in players. It's not bringing me back, that's for sure. I just want to see that they're stopping FOMO and they're stopping just all these random stupid design choices. And that's it, and the thing is I'm not even bothered enough to even look to see if they fixed it already. That's the problem here. I want the say about the game to be like whatever people are saying, public and stuff, or Twitch, whatever. I want it to be about how good the gameplay is, not how good the housing system is. Yeah, that's my closing thoughts on it. Well, it's the, hang on, let me do the math. 31 minus 30 plus 5 minus 4 equals plus something minus whatever. I don't know where the fuck I was going with this, but it's somewhere equals 1. It's the first day of December, and of course that marks that Christmas songs are going to be playing and Christmas movies are going to be saying. Don't mean to rhyme. I tried to freestyle, but you ain't got the Kyle. Sorry. I'm like fucking spending so long holding that in. It's so stupid. Anyway, I wanted to talk about some Christmassy related things, basically. Talk about movies, music, games, if there is any. I can't really pinpoint anything though. It's a weird thing. So games might not even get mentioned, other than updates, but I could say about the favourite update then. So let's start with music, because that's obviously one that I'm quite versed in at this point in the game. Say my name. And I think there's good music out there, but there's also okay music and bad music, of course. We've heard Last Christmas and I don't know, like Carol the Bells a lot, and probably something else. So I swear, like, did what's his name? That singer guy from I think the 70s or 60s. I can't remember. I really liked his stuff. He was like a jazzy sort of musician. I think he did a Christmas song. My darling, you are so delightful. I can't remember. But that's the interesting part of that. Yeah, I think when it comes to Christmas songs, it has to have two things in it, I think. It has to be Christmassy themed, and it also has to be radio friendly. So Christmassy themed doesn't necessarily mean like Jingle Bells, which definitely add an element to it. But it has to be about Christmas, obviously, hence Last Christmas and Drowning Pool, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. So I'm thinking of two songs as probably my favourites for Christmas. Actually, maybe a third. The first one I think would have to be. Was I talking about music yet? Yeah, it was. Something I forgot. The first one would be probably one of the oldest, which is Jingle Bell Rock. I really love this song. It's so good. It's old, but it's good. It's got great guitar work. It's super interesting as well, instrumentally. It's got enough going on that it's just not boring. So it just kind of works, you know. That's the thing with it. Very old-fashioned, as you could expect. And then I have to talk about the second track, which it probably will surprise some people, but won't as well. I think it played during Black Mirror's White Christmas episode, which is a very Christmassy episode, obviously. Nothing like a dystopian Christmas hellscape. You could just be blocked by anyone. Oops, spoilers. Anyway. Yeah, but the second song. I wish it could be Christmas every day, whichever that was. It's quite a fun song. It also sounds a bit old as well. I'm not sure who actually made it because I've heard it so many times. I just don't actually know. It's the same with a lot of songs actually. You hear it on the radio quite a few times. It's less common in what is it? Like on radio now. And speaking of which, I've heard terrible fucking new music. Well, not just new music, but the Christmas stuff in general. Yeah, like the new Christmas music is just fucking awful. It is so bad. I remember listening to one of them last year, and it's like, I was trying to listen to the fucking song that I don't even know who the vocalist is. The instrumental was garbage. The theme was garbage. It just didn't feel like Christmas at all. And so it just fucking sucked, obviously. As it would if it failed to do those basic principles. So yeah, I didn't like that. I can't remember who it was though. It would have helped if I would have known. So I couldn't name and shape it, obviously. As we do here usually. So that leads me on to my third Christmas pick, and this one is really unexpected because I haven't heard it in so long. I remember remembering it last year, and I think it came on the radio eventually. But it's such a rare track to even hear. It's so bizarre. And this track is Christmas Time by The Darkness. Another great guitar track. And it's actually really good. It's so hard to pick a favourite Christmas song, if there is even one to begin with. I think, just for the sake of the guitar melodies, it's probably Christmas Time. I also like the chord progression, that is interesting too. I love the fucking build-ups and stuff. And also the vocalist is pretty insane. Those notes are just insanely high. It's crazy. So for that reason, that's probably my favourite Christmas song, honestly. And the theme too is good. And so what's next? I'm trying to think. Movies, yes. Movies are quite interesting too, as you could expect. But there's quite a lot of common Christmas movies anyway, like Die Hard and Shrek, technically. Sort of a Christmassy movie for some reason. I don't know why, but people watched that a lot during that time. I don't know, I'm weirded out by it too. You're not alone. I'm here for you. But yeah, it's such a weird thing. I'm really not sure what to think about it. But I do think there are good Christmas themed movies, like actual Christmas. And you know, I'm thinking of like a recent one, like of Christmas, or technically it's quite a few years ago, but I watched it recently. And I do really like it. It's surprising, because I like Hollywood stuff to begin with, just by virtue of that, and obviously my pick will be what you think it is. But After Christmas is actually really underrated. I'm genuinely surprised it didn't take off. It's actually a good movie. It's not the best one, but it's good. I could watch it again, and that says a lot about the quality of it. I just love that it fills in the gaps and it answers a question like, oh, how does Santa do this? And he has a slightly racist grandpa, or father rather. It is really fucking good. I love the character's design in that, it's just genius. Although it's a bit cliche in one area, I did think, but it's still good. I'll recommend it for anyone looking for a new Christmas movie. Jingle All the Way. I haven't seen that in ages. I'm not sure about it. I also remember Elf, but I don't remember much about it, other than he's just an elf, and he's sort of awkward. I've never seen The Grinch, so I can't comment on that. I've seen Die Hard, and I really like Die Hard. It's an interesting movie. I really like, I think the first one it was. The second one was okay, and the third one was like meh. But it's alright. You definitely can't go wrong with them. And yeah, people debate, are they Christmas movies? Well, they're based around Christmas, and that's the entire theme of it. This family man trying to provide for Christmas, and then gets caught up in these fucking schemes. Of course, I think it is kind of Christmassy, honestly. And, I didn't watch them until like recently as well, so it's another thing here. So what next? Trying to go down the list. I remember once one Christmas when Futurama movies were out. For some reason they released on Christmas, I think. I watched the fuck out of them. Like all four of them. Because they're sort of out at the same time. God, that one with Theodore was fucking depressing. Holy shit. That hits way too close to home, and I definitely can't watch that again. I've seen clips of it and it's like, oh my god. It just makes me want to cry every time. It literally does. Yeah, it's just such a fucking heartbreaking story. It has no real ending. And then the ending is just sad. Anyway. So yeah, that was sort of a Christmas movie of good old days, childhood and stuff. Shrek, was it mentioned? I can't really think of many others because I haven't seen like stuff like Frozen. I'm not interested in Frozen, to be honest. It's on my list of things to watch as like a last resort. It's not a priority thing. I don't think there's any anime, not even like Christmas specials. I genuinely can't list anything. Did Kobayashi's Dragon Maid have a Christmas episode? I think it did. I have a feeling it did. I don't know why I'm remembering that. Anyway. Anime doesn't come to mind, really. Simpsons has plenty of episodes, but not a movie, obviously. God, I really can't think that there isn't much coming to mind in terms of Christmas themes, but then I have to mention my favourite Christmas movies of all time, because they're also based around Christmas and played on Christmas, as they've also been childhood, and obviously it's Wallace and Gromit, the goats, and they actually had sheep once. The Wallace and Gromit movies are so good. The old ones are especially charming because they're just hand animated and done really well. Yeah, speaking of like the earliest ones, like going to the moon and stuff, to obviously the recent one, which is actually really good, and I'll bring it up in my things of 2025. I think the older ones are my favourite, but the recent one is also not that bad either. I did like some of that. The people who complain about the newer ones as not being as Wallace and Gromity as it used to be, being a bit too modernised as well. And for some reason, I think people are no doubt taking issue with the fucking name. A police officer, like, Jesus Christ, shut up. It's so bizarre that there's a sort of reaction like that. Especially to Wallace and Gromit, which is kind of, I wouldn't say it's progressive, but it's at least neutral. So it's just so bizarre. They don't even respect the movie enough to be neutral about it. Are you kidding me? Weirdos. Yeah, so Wallace and Gromit probably takes the cake, and honestly all the movies are good. From what I can remember, I need to rewatch The Were Rabbit. There's some really funny adult jokes in that, which I didn't realise before, obviously as a kid. Because I saw that as a kid. And The Marrow of Loaf from Death was funny in areas too. Also, I think they had adult jokes too. Also, it had a sort of graphic scene, didn't it? I'm sort of briefly remembering that someone actually fucking dies, I think. Or theoretically dies. I did like the romance between Gromit and that dog. It's pretty adorable. Yeah. So Wallace and Gromit definitely takes it for that. I will say that for games, it's not hard to pick, but I'll mention the ones I do know of. So, with live services, there are usually updates. I remember about Warcraft sort of having one. It was okay. I can't remember if there was like decorations and stuff in the main cities or what. No, there's like events and stuff. Maybe even like the carnival stuff. I Fairman. I can't get his name, alright? I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, something like that. So it doesn't really count in my opinion. It's Christmassy themes, I guess, but that's kind of all it does. It doesn't really do anything else, nothing themed around it. And I'm yet to experience the Final Fantasy XIV one, speaking of which, the game that I picked. TF2 has a interesting sort of theme around it. I can't remember what they called it. It's Nismus, that's it. And then Sniper calls it Pismus. Yeah, TF2 is kind of fun, especially with like the new maps and stuff. It can be fun. It's got some interesting updates. I don't like that it just constantly adds cosmetics. It's fucking annoying, and also Christmas themed ones as well, which don't age well and don't look anywhere at all like it belongs in the game. So that has to fucking stop. Jesus Christ. But then I have to pick my favourite update for gaming in general, and it's probably Yuletide in Rocksmith. What? Gotta imagine. Yuletide in Deep Rock Galactic. Yeah, it's pretty much one of the best updates every year. Just undeniably so. Because it's just so fun. You're chasing around an elf to get your performance bonus in the caves, and it can have really interesting results, like you're chasing it and you get cave leads or something. Also, like, walks up the ceiling and then you get the memes where suddenly you're holding your child and he needs help. Because you actually have to hold yourself after you kill him. It's like really funny. It gets some great moments from that. And subreddit's almost constantly filled with that. Yeah, it's wonderful. And then you get also the cosmetic updates, and it's a non-greedy game, so it means that you keep them and they're not limited. So that's great. That's probably why it's my favourite update in terms of that. And then I have to give a shout out to one of my favourite traditions every year, which I try to tune into all the time. The Yogscast Jingle Jam. I've mentioned this before, possibly, but those not familiar. I really like the fucking Jingle Jam. It's great. They live stream for charity for 14 days, raise money, they play games or watch videos and stuff. There's different, like, I don't know what you call them. They do something different every day, basically, for every 3 hours. And it's so entertaining. Brings the best in everyone, and yeah, you can't go wrong with it. It's cosy as well. It's pretty much some of the regulars on there, like Jingle Jam, Jingle Cats. That's amazing. TCD, see at the end of the day. And also launch the collection. There's a bunch of games that you can get if you donate. And yeah, there's so much I love about this. It's probably the only part of the year that's actually like, wow, I'm really glad this exists. And also Lucy found me, and that's great. Over me being so socially awkward, I just don't feel welcome. That's always the case. And also I don't really celebrate Christmas, that's another discussion. It's just no point. Again, it's like a capitalist holiday, so you don't really want to support it, and at the same time with this living crisis we're in, fuck it. Like, no way we're gonna celebrate this shit anymore. You know, if things go the way it does, there won't be Christmas. They're literally all fucking billionaires are like Grinches or something. Rich bastards. So yeah, they need to be eradicated. Anyway, it won't be Christmas without a bit of red and green. So let's move on to another topic. So though it's a meme, I find it kind of funny that flow state is a thing, because I've actually experienced it for quite a while now. It's weird to say, but I literally have. Shortly after my mental health breakdown, which I keep mentioning, it's sort of important. It's sort of the pillar stone of how I've become who I am, where I am, what I am, and literally just, I don't know, like forged me, I guess, in a way, and led me to be the person I am today. And because of that, I've literally reached flow state, and I've been going through it for years. If it's movement around a house, or if it's just around certain places, or even just knowing my height. For example, I've had this since childhood. I've been able to perfectly predict every single time when my my height is at the right sort of level. Like when I'm walking underneath bushes or something which I've overgrown, I'm almost perfectly every single time just narrowly avoiding it with my hair by mere millimetres. And that's sort of the flow state. That's the earliest sign of it, I think. But other people just don't seem to learn and don't even guess where to even stand, where to put their height even in that sense. And in terms of music and artwork, I've sort of found that flow state too. Again, even though it's a meme, it is pretty much a real thing. And I didn't know what to call it at first. I called it heightened senses, but then I realised that it's just actually more to do with I'm so familiar with things in life now that I just can do it easily, do it effortlessly. And one of those things that happens to be the life hacks and tips and tricks I found over the years. Because I'm so used to these things, I found strategies to address it. And because of that, I'm literally just in that state of flow where I am just unreal. I'm just, I don't know what to fucking describe it as. It's almost like anime protagonists sort of feels and materials, I guess. You just realise that, oh shit, you're in this state and you're just so good at something that it happens. I found this with Deep Rock Galactic. I've been in the flow state in that. Team Fortress 2, been in the flow state with that as well. And even Final Fantasy 14 here. Literally, in the past few months, I've beat. I remember doing extreme trials for Endwalker where it's really difficult and just nailing them. I did Savage raids, I did P8S and P4S and nailed them as well. And even Blue Mage I've started to get used to a lot more. And that's essentially a flow state. It's not necessarily a learning experience. It's when you can do a mechanic so many times and then find something new. At some point anyway. Or even just fix a mistake. It's when you use rescue on someone. It's when you, for example, mitigate a mechanic with something else. Just yesterday, you'll see this in the funny moments. I ran out of defensives for a massive portal in a level 50 dungeon. And we had a ninja who was putting down the Rukaton. I can't remember what it was called, it's a sand thing. And so when I ran out, I started to kite them all on this fucking Rukaton sand. And literally survived. I didn't take any hits because I was kiting them along it in a circle. That's a fucking flow state, if I've ever seen one. It's actually funny but also interesting. Yeah. Jesus Christ though, that is real. It's crazy how real that is actually. I didn't know what the term was, but now I know. It's kind of yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, I don't know. It's a weird discussion, but might be interesting to people. It relates to PETA, the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, aka LOLCAM. Yeah, it's unfortunate because really a few successful smear campaigns have literally worked, and by the way, it's really distasteful when you fucking suck up to billionaire corporations versus a charity. Are you fucking kidding me? It's absolutely stupid. But anyway, there's a video called Why People Hate PETA, and it's in brackets astroturfing. And it explains very well about why people hate PETA, and it's actually exactly what I said it was. It's a smear campaign. It's funded by billionaires and meat industry corporations who don't actually give a fuck about you or the animals that you care for. Because if they did, they wouldn't be making a smear campaign like this. Because logically speaking, say that there is actually a lot of kill shutters, which PETA have to do anyway, because they've got such a massive, like, I don't know what to call it, catalogue, or they're over occupied with like animals, and they have to put them down because nobody will adopt them, again because of the reputation. So you end up killing them by result of just disliking them. So it just really backfires, which is really fucking crazy to me. But then I just wonder, why the hell haven't they rebranded? The biggest problem with PETA is they've made a name for themselves in the worst way possible, which is completely misleading claims. And we're talking about the things like autism, the things like sex cells, basically. And there was another one, the Pokemon, the game stuff, yes. That was also shit. Well, I say this as someone who was formerly vegan. Well, technically. But technically I'm still following a plant-based lifestyle, as I should be. You can see my Why I'm No Longer Vegan video for that, if you're interested. But I don't have nice things to say about PETA, really, overall. And frankly, I just think it's very stupid that they haven't rebranded it, or just tried something else. Because at this point their reputation is essentially shit, and they'll get a bigger reputation probably if they rebrand. They'll get more attention. People think, like, oh god, you're actually jumping ship, and then the other benefit of this is that people might not have even heard of them and probably don't even care. But then I have to bring up this other issue, which is very important as well, because I think that it's actual fucking garbage because of I got distracted. Shouldn't be doing this whilst watching a Jingle Jam podcast. Just a lot of shitty things that people say about this sort of stuff, and I'm just very concerned about it, really. It gets really frustrating. You just want the world to be a nicer place, and you can't really do that because people are just beating up a charity for things, which PETA is a charity, an organisation, possibly, but charity, almost definitely, because that's what they specialise in. It's absolutely fucking crazy, really, the fact that this is such an issue. And I just don't understand why people think that this is a rational belief, because, again, this hatred for them leads to more animals being killed, and it doesn't help anyone. And then we have to mention the point that's what I was getting to, I remember now, that people are currently using PETA and other such things, like, for example, so-called extremist activists, to literally fuck you over by bringing up the case they're extreme, but also using them as a scapegoat, literally. So it's extremely fucked. They're using PETA as a scapegoat to avoid addressing their lifestyle choices, which do harm animals. And yeah, I've heard every fucking argument on the song, what the hell, that song at this point. And I've been able to respond to every single one I've literally seen in the 5+ years that I was vegan. And I just hear the same arguments over and over again, like protein, crop deaths, there's other things as well, like malnutrition. Well, I'm fat. Like, this is literally fat. So, I don't understand what you mean by malnutrition. I've literally gotten test results several times over the past 5 years. There's the only vitamin I'm lacking in being iron. And then I addressed that by having a cast iron skillet, some beans, and some more iron-containing foods. So it's not hard. So people really get this misinformation, and also that's from billionaire industries like the meat industry, who don't care about your health, they don't care about the environment, and they cause more problems. Like, congratulations, you scapegoated using an animal rights organisation, and you're blaming like them for all your problems when you're the one causing it. Well, hello? Isn't this what Trump is doing right now? Literally scapegoating minorities and immigrants as well, to fucking get away from the Epstein files. Like, it's just so fucking scummy. Every time I hear it, and I was watching, obviously, the Scotch Jingle Jam right now, and there's a video by the WWF that's quite entertaining, but the response was just so fucking distasteful from this one viewer in chat who said that at least it's not PETA. You don't even fucking know what they do. That's what a lot of people say, and they don't even know what PETA does. Even the people who've done the research don't even know what PETA actually does. It's just baffling. Like, people are so uneducated that they literally latch onto what other people have said about PETA, rather than looking at the source, looking at the evidence. Because I did my own research before this video about calling it astroturfing, and I basically discovered that the same thing. It was meat industry funded. They only focus on cats and dogs rather than any other animal, which shows a bias as well, a dangerous bias at that, because yes, we love cats and dogs. The problem is there are other animals that are also domesticated and killed there as well. So again, it's very fucking biased. It's just literally shock value as well. And then you have to remember the fact, again, what I said before. It happens more commonly than you think because people are just turning them in at such rapid rates and nobody wants to adopt them. And then because of the hatred, that causes them to kill more. Because nobody's coming. Everyone thinks, oh, PETA, they'll not get something from there. And suddenly all these pets are dying more and more. So you've successfully killed more animals, as I've been saying. Because you're scapegoating. Well, the rest of my case, it's just absolute fucking absurdity. Hopefully at some point, people for the ethical treatment of animals can rebrand, or at least be a fucking better organisation. Just be elsewhere. And I'm just tired of it. So, the writing is done for Tales. Yeah, funny pun. I'm trying to remember where I left off. I think maybe it's like getting into the gritty stuff with like going into the mansion because we're sort of unknown threat. They're predicting they need like special people, basically special children for that matter, and Tales and a lot to do that. And yeah, but I was starting to explore like their home life, and oh yeah, I was talking about the countries as well. I remember now. Basically, what's going on there, and you know, it eventually evolves because they're growing up as well. And after that sort of holiday where they had that encounter, there's also other things going on. There's also really heartfelt moments. I remember I wrote into it like a sort of like a special sort of dance thing that took place in public, which technically they're not supposed to go to, but they decided to anyway, just for fun. And they could sort of keep their own anyway, so they sort of could do it. And as predicted, it was sort of invaded. So, yeah, this is a really interesting dance scene there. You know, I've got some, not tension, but like things going on between Cream and Dash, just as a way to make the throuple actually happen, because it's called a throuple apparently. You might be wondering like, oh, what the fuck are you doing putting 3 kids together? First, it's fiction. Second, it's into the future. Third, social changes. Social norms are different. Like every fucking society, literally. And to them, it's probably normal. So you have to understand that shit before you even start judging this based on a human perception. So that's important. Anyway, during this dance as well, there's an interesting part where they have to protect everyone there, because there's also random people, and Tails notices a poor lonely boy there, a mouse boy. And it's called Bonty, and basically decides to take a dance with him, which obviously as everyone was watching is like, oh my god. Both adorable and extremely kind. But yeah, they become friends. I think I was talking about the octopus assistant Cherry last time as well. So maybe it's like Parser? I can't remember. There's definitely something going on there, but anyway, the story progresses and, tells us like they're all growing up. Amy gets her own room, and things start happening there, and then they eventually get their own rooms as well. Tails decides to take Cream and Dash on a date, asks Knuckles for advice. You're probably better off reading it if you want something to read. There's about 65,000 plus words, I think, in this. Maybe a bit less, but it's still a lot of fucking writing. It took me over a week. Just finished it today, and I thought I wouldn't finish it. But I did. And I even did character sheets for the new characters I've added. So there's some very interesting bits there. They're growing up. They asked Knuckles for advice of all things, like where to go. And it's also just a place where Sonic and Amy previously went because they are dating. Also, at this point, they are pretty much in the present where they were recording stuff. And yeah, I think they were. And again, I'm not sure. I might fuck that up. There's also bits that need to be changed, and if it ever does become a thing again, everyone's pretty much open-ended and can be changed, I think. Can be changed for the better, so yeah. Something interesting, they go on this date. It's to a place called Marble Metropolis. They go on a hill. It's where Sonic and Amy went, and Sonic supposedly transformed into something that made Amy think she needed to perform an exorcism on him. Yeah, that's interesting. Sort of foreshadowing though. Then they get there, and Tails has a headache, and then also on the hill they have a picnic and stuff, and there's sort of this worry about what happens to Tails. He just suddenly faints during talking to them, and he starts hearing voices whilst conscious but unconscious as well. And he's hearing things but he's not seeing. He's unable to move. And everyone's panicking and Sonic's there for some reason. Which you might think is suspicious, but no. He actually says that this is normal and leaves, leaving Cream and Dash very worried about him. And it gets very interesting because there's also a bunch of references that also reference Open Your Heart and I think Live and Learn as well. With these voices that he starts to hear. Like literally voices talking to him. And he doesn't know where they're coming from, so that's happening, and then he wakes up, suddenly dashes into the sky at the speed of sound at Mach 1, at Mach 2, and then Mach 3. And eventually he comes back down, realising he's got like his own super form. That is actually crazy, so he's awake at this point. And he goes back down at Mach 4, which is finally, he managed it. It was a dream all along, and he did it. And yeah. So he did that and landed with, say, the girls at this point. There's also a part about Dash being non-binary, I forgot about that. I made Dash transition to being an NB, so they'd be an NB friend. NB friend, I think. I don't know. I also had this stupid name for parent, non-binary parent, and I could be wrong on this, but Ember. Because he's sort of got mother, father, Ember. I don't know. It could be genius, could be terrible, I'm not sure. But that's what I've sort of come up with anyway. Yeah, just for future's sake anyway. Anyway, he takes them on a ride to show them his new abilities, and yeah, they have fun. They kiss him at the end, obviously. Gotta have romantic tension. And then after that they decide to search for the Chaos Emeralds, because that's what they are. And then Tails is sort of contacted by the voices, because he keeps hearing them. I think he confronts Knuckles about this, and they discover that they might be able to contact the voices directly to talk to them via this like sort of ritual thing. I wasn't sure how to write this exactly, but I just said like eucalyptus, like sitting on the floor cross-legged or something, and breathing through the nose and sort of getting in tune with it. But I sort of did that anyway, and we get one of the most interesting sort of lore drops in this, in my opinion. It's probably the darkest as well, because I did sort of go there. It's very dark. But anyway, he appears in the Echidna tribe, and he's surrounded by two assistants who are guarding him, but they're not actually real. Well, they're ghosts, but they're real, but they're ghosts. And everything else around him is a memory. It's just the echidnas minding their own business, being them, and Tikal is that. And yeah, she basically introduces Tails and gives him a rundown of the place. Also left in a joke in there about this assistant just seeing himself as a younger self. Just joking about his penis size. Just, it's fucking stupid. I left it in anyway because I thought it was funny. To think about deleting it, but that probably is just too funny. I try to make it funny whenever I can, that's the thing. It's been hard to make it a comedy because there's just not much I can do with the current sort of personalities that these characters have. Anyway, it's being introduced and stuff, and Tikal's basically being herself. She struggles with some of the tribe, I think, and decides to look for this meteor that just landed on the planet near where they live. I actually called it something. I think I called it Chilada, because I was thinking of that joke from that YouTube short, like Knuckles eat enchilada. I was like, Chilada, perfect name. It's so stupid, but I love it. But that's the name of the place. And yeah, but Tikal's like empathetic towards the child, noticing that they're kind of innocent, and she really takes to them, and they take to her as well, and some of the other echidnas, so they become good friends, good companions, rather, as well. So they're just fine like that, and yeah, everything's seemingly fine for a while, but then we cut to a memory which is kind of hard to watch. Tikal crying on the sign outside her parents' house, but it's only her father, and she's crying about something that he just did to her. Did say it was going to get dark, then he comes out and drags her in, kicking and screaming. Yeah, and Tails is obviously a bit sort of scared by this because it's just a horrible situation. He doesn't know what it is yet, and yeah. So I think what happens afterwards is Tikal basically goes for education and stuff, and basically tells on her father, and gets him prosecuted, actually. So he's like in prison, and yeah, she's basically living a life as an orphan now because she has no parents anymore. And she manages to make it though. She succeeds in getting through life and education, and then she decides to become a sort of political figure. Literally at the age of, I think, I don't know what age she was actually. I didn't actually write that. That's another thing, I suppose, but I guess like our youngest 6 years old, then at this political age she's like 12, a bit like Amy. And so yeah, she's basically running as like a political leader there, as an advocate for peace and stuff. She's giving a speech as well, and they're witnessing this memory together with Tikal's ghost, and also technically also present self and conscious self as a ghost, and they're just watching it. And yeah, until sees what a good character she is in this, and seems to really like what she's saying. And then Tikal says that she's naive to believe this, and so it got to a memory where the place is suddenly on fire, which immediately makes Tails a bit scared. And she's explaining what's going on, and it turns out that even though the echidnas were on board with her, some of them didn't like what she was doing and decided to overthrow her along with other tribes that were either invading or close by. So they just work together to reach the goal of oppressing, unfortunately, the female killers. So that's sort of where this comment on things about feminism comes on. And there's also a mention, I forgot about this, there's like a conversation before this where Tails was talking with his friends and Amy as well. And so he talks about the superpowers that he got. And Amy's sort of jealous that she didn't get them because she wanted to fight for feminism. And so Tails very cutely decides that he will fight for feminism on her behalf. Yeah. That makes them even closer than before. Who can fucking hate Tails? Like, it's just impossible. Like, literally impossible challenge. So yeah, that's something. Anyway, Tails is a very empathetic person at this point, and he's doing everything he can to understand people, and Tikal takes him to the place where she was abducted and tied to a post inside a house that wasn't even hers. And as the place was burning as well, it was getting warmer. And then they did unimaginable things in the house, and Tikal gave Tails the option to leave at that point. Just basically say no, because it's very horrific, and Tikal herself was unsure about showing this. But Tails decides that her pain is his pain too, so they experience it together. And it's sort of in hopes that this will help comfort Tikal to show that there are people that care about her, and even Tails does. I forgot there's also this conversation about how the strongest of hearts are able to communicate with these lost souls. Hence Tikal here. And yeah, that's why this happened. And Tails witnesses it, obviously feeling horrified and flinching every time something happens. And yeah, kind of say the best he can, and Tikal somehow escapes. But not for long, she was captured again. So yeah, that's traumatizing, but she's basically encouraging him now to be a stronger person and save the world, using those powers he's been granted by them. And later on there is a conversation about how the Chaos Emeralds came to be, because he's trying to find them and he couldn't find them in real life obviously. And he tries to ask where they are, and essentially Tikal explains what they were made for. It turns out the Chow that they had befriended had made technically the Chow's emeralds, because this is a funny joke, but also it's kind of clever. But the Chows didn't know what an apostrophe is, and so it was called the Chow's emeralds originally, but Chaos Emeralds in the end. And each emerald represents has an ability rather. I can't remember what I wrote because I closed the document stupidly. But each one has an interesting thing, with the most notable one I think being the green emerald basically teleporting you. It's quite a powerful one. And with them together that creates the super ability of having all these powers together and more. Yeah, and it only responds to the strongest of hearts. And the system as well, because I've replaced rings essentially, is that they use energy. And they get that energy through obviously eating, like protein and stuff. So that's how they get the power to use it and also run out of power eventually. It's just an interesting point later on when we get onto that. And so they're training with these powers after finding a plan to get the Chaos Emeralds through a bounty system. And they decide to fly around, and Tails also has a really heartfelt moment with his mum. He has a lot of them actually, with Kylie. And yeah, they're just flying around. Also before that, I forgot, I keep forgetting these parts, but he finds out about his previous mum, who I've named Phyllis. And he gets really upset because it was only found out during a sort of movie night with only obviously the youngest, no adults. But Amy sort of mentioned that there's a hidden secret with this secret criminal organisation trying to capture them for them being special. And it turns out the head of it was Phyllis. That's revealed quite early on. And Tails looks it up because the last name is Prower. So he's not sure, but he's upset either way because it has his last name. His real last name. Oh my god, that autistic girl's cute. Anyway, it's her. Sorry, I'm watching Games Done Quick. Say to herself, oh my god. Yeah, anyway, back to this. I'm trying to think now. Yeah, he goes into his room, his own room, obviously, by now, because he's grown up a bit. Still about 8 years old. And he looks it up and he finds out that Phyllis is actually a well-known leader of this criminal organisation. They're trying to find and capture, essentially, trying to capture the leader and stop everything from happening, from abducting people and human trafficking. And Tails breaks down, obviously, and then starts to faint because he just can't handle the pressure. And eventually he wakes up, he's in his mother's arms, sort of being hugged. Doctor's there as well to make sure he's fine. Everyone else is there, and then they eventually leave except for Kylie. So Kylie's like trying to comfort him the best she can, and she eventually does. And they sort of sleep in the bed together for that night, just to make sure he's safe. Yeah, again, very strong bond, very sweet. That's kind of the thing I love about writing as well, is you can make this as emotional as you can. And it's just as meaningful. And there's probably one of my favourite moments is actually explaining the other reason they have gloves and hands, but you'll see that at the end. I almost don't want to spoil it. It's actually so fucking good that I just don't want to. So yeah, after that anyway, going back to the Chaos Emeralds arriving, Tails takes his mum on a ride with that, and Sonic jokes that he thinks that Tails has a new girlfriend. And also it makes Kylie laugh and Tails embarrassed. Because they can all go super at once, basically. And yeah, so eventually they sort of prepare for the worst, because there's apparently more news, because Tails doesn't like the news, by the way. He actually has depression, believe it or not. And he didn't know he had this until later, obviously discovering his mum, being his biological mum rather, being a complete douche. And yeah, again, I did say it gets kind of dark. There's also plenty of anxiety, so he obviously has problems. And that's quite obvious. Where was I with that? Yeah, the sort of training and stuff, and making the most of the time before this big threat. And the big threat actually in the news was this spaceship they discovered from basically not necessarily a light year away, but far enough away that they can pick it up on a telescope. Is that what it is, a telescope? I can't remember what it's fucking called now. God, I feel like I'm being gaslit by my own dementia or something. I don't know. Anyway, so they discovered that, and it's coming closer to Sonoria, which makes them panic and worried. And eventually they get a red alert, and basically the entire planet's in danger. Everyone around the world has responded to it, and it's time for everyone to get into gear and take the super form. Knuckles as well can take this form too. He discovered it quite early. Also, it was Bimph that found out the ancient knowledge through Knuckles, because Knuckles was inheriting it from the only grandparents who were looking after him, and then had to abandon him because they were dying, essentially. So he was taken in by Bimph, the walrus cop guy, the chief technically, or director. I don't know what actually his position is, but he's definitely higher up and closer to the government than anyone else. So he's helping these families through, and the other house as well. Yeah, so they get into gear. They start flying up, obviously they say heartfelt goodbye and stuff. Fly up into the atmosphere. going to space where the spaceship is very much close to Sonora and starting to open fire on them. And they discuss a plan. Knuckles was to the fuel room, Tails was to the control room, and Sonic was to just find out what the hell is going on there. And turns out that they get some intel that there's actually aliens on board. And these aliens are, as they later discover, humans. So everyone's doing their job. Sonic finds some prisoners and frees them, only to sort of pass out suddenly. And Tails is in the control room, but finds something shocking. He finds a human talking to his biological mother, Phyllis. That's an interesting twist. And it does surprise him, but because she tells him off for barging in, he punches the screen and breaks it, and then the humans there pointing a laser weapon at Tails. And because Tails is in super form, obviously, he just fights back. He doesn't really care what happens and just beats the guy down, and for some reason he pisses his pants. Yeah, I literally wrote that in. It doesn't say piss, but a yellowy liquid appeared beneath him, and because he's knocked out, and Tails manages to basically stop fucking else something's going on outside. I need to check this out. I forgot to say the communications were jacked when they went into the ship. So basically on their own from that point, they couldn't communicate with each other. They had these earpieces rather than headpieces. They can speak to benefit everyone else, the family, and obviously Sonic and Knuckles as well, so everyone can speak to each other. But there's like a signal jammer that's being used to block out their specific frequency whilst also listening in on it. So it's like advanced technology from humans here. So what happens after that is Tails has to disable the communication first to basically make sure that they're all knowing he's safe, and as they're checking he's safe, he suddenly passes out as well. And so too does Knuckles. It turns out it's because they didn't get enough energy, because this all started in the morning where they didn't have enough energy to begin with. So something was obviously very wrong here, and back on the ground, Benf was essentially being completely berated because obviously he'd put them in danger. Like, for well knowing what's going to happen, and obviously you can't do anything because this is like unpredictable. He had an intelligence team, but he didn't have the team to know what his powers did. There's no time. It's one of those things where the enemy was actually kind of ahead in that sense and knew that this was happening. Like, there was power and there was the spaceship coming as well from an alien planet, supposedly. And on top of that, as if things couldn't get any worse, they're also panicking about the fact that Amy, Dash and Cream had all passed out as well. Like, something was very wrong there, and it wasn't making any sense until they started levitating and turning into flames, a bit like the other super forms. And then it's revealed that, obviously here, you can probably tell what's going to happen, they all pretty much go Super Saiyan and basically follow in the footsteps of everyone else when they wake up, which is incredible. And Amy finally lives out the dream. She can fight for feminism and fight with obviously more feminine people. And yeah, basically they discuss a plan as well, because they got Amy's watch and they managed to, because they're more on energy, because these are like, I forgot to say, but they're more combat trained, so they have more energy than they need to have. They have like protein bars and stuff in the morning. There's more to spend, so because of that they have more time, much more time. And from that, well, that doesn't actually explain Knuckles, but I suppose then he probably woke up late. That's probably the excuse. But yeah, they discuss the plan. They decide that they need to go and rescue the others, and also continue executing the plan. Destroy the fuel to make it stop moving, and stop their basically go into the control room and basically turn it around to get away from Sonoria, which is the plan originally, and you'll see why later. And then Sonic, Amy basically rescuing Sonic and finding out about the humans and stuff. And they all sort of go through the plan. And Dash rescues Knuckles, obviously. Cream rescues Tails. Pretty much given at that point, given my prior experience writing them. And Amy rescues Sonic, and they're all sort of waking up now. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, obviously. So, next thing, I'm trying to think, so I'm distracted by other things here. What happens next? Damn it. Getting way too distracted. I've got to give me some seconds to think. Cream basically finishes off the job, and so does Dash. Basically explaining things before picking up Knuckles to rescue him. And Cream basically finds the navigation controls, disables the communication thing, I think, as well. No, actually Tails did that. But Cream moves the ship in the direction away from Sonoria, but it turns out that the human there gained consciousness again and told her that this is actually part of the plan all along. And then they realise that actually this is probably going to hurt Sonoria, because it's going to turn the ship towards it, where they have weapons on the side, more so on the side than the front, and destroy Sonoria, which was the plan, because Phyllis actually said in the meeting, I did write this beforehand actually, this human here in this control room, that she wanted to destroy Sonoria. That was the ultimate plan. And that was why she's in communication with aliens and all things. Humans. It's just absolutely insane. So there's sort of a panic about what to do, and Cream is discussing it with Tails and stuff, and through the headpiece, the earpiece, they're discussing what to actually do. And they decide on something and have a plan. Tails does, I think. Or Cream? It might have been Cream actually. I can't remember who decided it, but they fly outside. Also, they transfer the power, that's the other thing. They can transfer a portion of their energy to the other through either kissing or, as we later find out with Dash and Knuckles, it's hand-holding, sort of teased. And Tickle's actually talking to them and walking them through that. So they can transfer that power, and basically all six of them have an ability now to basically stay super formed. And yeah, it's honestly really cool. There's some interesting details there. So they do that, and they go outside to enter the ship, and they start to push it, and they're basically rotating it so that the nose is facing the scenario again. And yeah, just doing that, and they succeed eventually. And yeah, but they need to do something else, and they need to get it dealt with where the ship is no longer a threat. So then it's decided they push it into the ocean, but with the risk of potentially destroying a scenario, because it's either one thing or the other at that point. So they decide to push it because there's nothing else they can do. Then what happens after that? Yeah, they push it, they get into the atmosphere, and their powers start to get weaker because they've also shared it, shared their energy. So it's starting to get weaker, and they have to find out what to do now to basically save Sonoria. They start dropping off one by one, Cream, Dash, and Amy, because they gave a lot more power than they should have, but they did anyway, because they love the crew here. Loved that Knuckles as well, but love Tails and Sonic even more. So that's why that happens. So it's them left, and when it comes down to it, when they're like 10,000 feet above the ocean in scenario, trying to stop the ship from falling with such an impact that it would destroy the planet. They tried to push it, basically all pushing it at once when it entered the atmosphere, actually trying to push it from nose, and yeah, they're trying their best to push it back because it's obviously very fucking heavy. It's like 4 square miles long, I think I decided to write it as. It's so fucking big and it's long to explore, but they end up trying to do that and sort of don't succeed properly. Which is where Knuckles comes up with a plan. Knuckles decides that he'd branch off, fly downwards, and do something where it needed Tails and Sonic to move away from the nose. And yeah, even though I forgot to write that part and they move away, they let him do his thing. He flies down and then he basically charges at it with a punch, and the punch reverberates through the ship. Rather than destroying it, it actually, because there's human prisoners on there, I can't remember if I mentioned that, I probably did, like human prisoners who are basically there for labour and other malicious things, and experimentation. Yeah, it slows the ship down completely. It's going from really fast speed to a slower speed now as it approaches Sonoria in its ocean. And at about 2,500 feet, I think I wrote it, was it 1,000? I think it's 1,000. It sort of, it gets there and Tails and Sonic suddenly faint because they've run out of energy. But they manage to slow it down, which is the important part. And they fall into the ocean as everyone else did, because there's a very emotional part of that too. Asking them to live on, thinking they're going to die. Yeah, they fall into the ocean, and it's seemingly the end for them. Yeah, everyone's panicking about this. I think I forgot to write a part about everyone else in the communications. Damn it. Yeah, sort of reacting to that. Yeah, they're falling in there, they're drowning, and suddenly they're saved by mysterious figures. It's echidna shaped. And it turns out that that's probably lost souls, the rest of the souls. So even though they saved the day, they got saved by the echidnas in the end. So that's interesting. And they wash up on the shore. They're all so happy to be alive and so happy that their mission was done. You could see the ship sticking out of the ocean and a bunch of military boats approaching it whilst civilians were looking in horror and confusion at this very thing. So things have to be explained, then communication starts and everyone's relieved to see that they're alive. And then they go to hospital and there they have an interesting confrontation and stuff, and they sort of dig into what's going on. Also, Tikal was actually there on the beach as a ghost, sort of thanking them for saving the world and more to come. Like literally, because that's a huge thing that they just did. Yeah, they go to hospital, they get checked out, turns out everyone's fine, which is strange because they hit the ocean quite hard. Because of the nature of them, I think Tails probably floated, Sonic probably just nosedived into there because of his sort of shape, and that's basically also. That was a suspicious one. And then look at Knuckles, who had far worse injuries. And it turns out he pretty much broke his back saving the girls, which naturally they all appreciate and love him for. So obviously they give him a big group hug. And there's also a scene with Ben, I think, sort of dismissing them, signing out. I would like this joke, signing out, and then as he's leaving with Knuckles in hand with bandages all around his back essentially, Ben just says, "Could you sign me up for a taxi?" It's so stupid. Again, I try to add a sense of humour. Anyway, later they celebrate, have dinner and stuff, and sort of decide what to do now that they're dismissed. And thanks for everything. And also they get a big reward for this because they can get all the money they ever need. So they decide what to do. And it turns out they just want to go back home to a simpler life in the end. But in the hotel that night, because they landed in Siren of all places, Tails is awake and couldn't get much sleep, so he's standing over the balcony. And of course his mother Kylie is there and awake, and she decides to join him and sit there. But she then sits him on his lap, on her lap rather, and has a conversation with him. And yeah, it's probably one of my favourite moments in that. Because like she's so relieved that he's alive, but also so proud of him. And also with the things with Phyllis happening as well, which Tails did ask about and said Bentford said he'd deal with it. Yeah, so after all this, it turns out that Kylie has something to show Tails, and they take off their gloves. It's not really showing, it's more of a communication, because this is what it's about. Because I do talk about the evolution of Sonarians and stuff later on, about how they carry things and got longer spines as a result, longer legs and stuff, longer muscles. But one of the other things about their evolutions is one thing didn't change. They have paw pads, and they never show their paw pads because it's simply a very romantic gesture or a gesture of trust, rather. You know, only done in medical situations as well, if there's any need to. And they just join hands. This is like soft paw pads, which are extremely sensitive as well, hence the sort of gloves with bacteria stuff. And the ecosystem is basically run by bacteria, which is why there's all this greenery. Because even though the wildlife is gone, they used to be there, it still lived on through its bacteria. So that's why they need to be safe. They say they can address it everywhere else with like regular baths. If it comes into contact with like the pores and stuff, then it could be a disaster. And also some on the feet, but you don't see that. I'm not a foot person. Yeah, they just sort of hold hands there at the end, showing complete love and trust in each other. You know, as a mother and son. And I think that's a really beautiful moment. It's just like the biggest bonding they've ever done. The closest they've ever got. Especially with everything that just happened, as I said, with Phyllis. It turns out that's not the end. Because they're sort of teasing him, I think I left this in anyway, they're sort of teasing him like that's not the end of the story, and there's like 3 random new voices and 3 familiar voices. And so that goes into the next episode where they're going back home, they're starting to get into regular routine and stuff, and soon they grow up and they start to do more things. Tails starts researching the Chaos Emeralds along with Sherry, who decided to still see him every now and then. There's obviously some catching up and stuff. Dash lives with Tails now, and so does Snow. Snow and Kylie are together, I forgot to mention that. And Cream's sort of basically pseudo living there because she's just that close to them both. So yeah, there's not much to say on the romance aspect. They're pretty much all a throuple now. It sounds wrong though. Call it a fucking throuple. Jesus Christ. Yeah, but there's still an issue because Tails is basically is really comfortable with his life, and he's now like 12 years old. But there's still something bothering him as he's talking to his mother. There's this really strange scene where basically everyone's out. He's staying at home because he's completed school. He's too smart for school. He's been offered a college. I'm not sure what to call it actually. He can go into college any time he wants and learn anything. And he's also starting an organisation, which I'll see later. But he has one thing on his mind, and that's about his mood and stuff, and where that sort of came from, and why his mood is so bad. But he has a bunch of like natural remedies on his desk. There's like CBD pills and stuff. Pretty sure there's other things on there. But it's not NSFW in a sense. Like, drugs I don't think are NSFW. If anything, it's very much a teenager thing, because that tends to be where it happens. But yeah, I can imagine he has some stuff like that. But he's like thinking about it, and he realises that this sort of traces back to the mistake obviously Phyllis made. But he's glad that he has Kylie as his mom. But at the same time, he's just wondering what life could have been, and that makes him kind of sad. So exactly because of that, he's wondering what to do about Phyllis, because he hasn't heard anything from her. Even though he tells us to catch up with his friends and stuff, he hasn't heard anything about Phyllis's capture or anything. No arrest, nothing. So it's interesting because he now needs to decide what to do, but then he gets a knock on the door. Says that it's Kylie, and it's not when they're worried about him, and he's finding a response. They think that he's doing something else. Bit of a joke there. Not really though. It's kind of serious. Yeah. They're concerned about him, and then Tails decides to phone Ben after many years of not talking to him. Because he's also a bit more grown up now and more experienced. He wants to know what's happening. And Bev sort of reveals news that they couldn't find Phyllis, even though she very much had people following her. The people who left and the people who disappeared had no tracks to follow, except for one person, and it turns out these tracks led to a place called, what do I call it? Suisar? I think I called it Suisar, it's also an anagram. And that goes to us enough information to sort of do research and stuff, and he sets up a safe place outside of the town, using the Chaos Emeralds that he made a replica of as well to teleport. And he goes to this place to do it safely, to conduct research and find out where she is. And that's where he gets the idea to capture her by himself. But nobody actually agrees with this, it turns out. This plan anyway, he finds her in a warehouse in this Suisar region, where it's actually ruled by a dictatorship, because again it sort of gets a bit weird here. It's like more political. I don't like this story, I did mention that. I think it could be improved. I did have an alternative idea of where she's in the city maybe, and finds out her location himself, but it didn't make sense with like the teenager sort of bit. But there's still a very emotional moment at the end, a very brutal moment too, but without that, perhaps two actually. So yeah, he goes there, doesn't go there actually, he plans everything, he confronts his family on it, basically brings them all there with the Chaos Emerald, and they're not sure about it. But he's so determined that he even doesn't listen to Kylie. And then she just eventually agrees with him and supports him with it, even if it will cost his life, because that's a risk that he has there. It's in such a dangerous territory that any slip-ups and he can lose his life. And also the nature of his obviously biological mum, Phyllis, yeah, that probably could happen. And he has to take along a few friends, so basically he didn't want to involve Cream or Dash, so he immediately excludes them from it. But Sonic, Knuckles and Amy with some hesitation eventually agrees to it, because I forgot to say Amy's part of a motorcycle gang, the Pico gang, I think I called it. But it's like a gang of like peace-loving people, but they go around schools talking about differences, and yeah, she's talking about that and interacting with children about those sort of things, because that sort of stems from obviously the past there. When she met Tails, when she met Cream, when she met Dash, there's all sorts of experiences. She expands her knowledge on that. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I like the idea of Amy being a biker, and part of a gang for that matter. But like a good type. It's sort of inspired by One Piece in a sense now I think about it. Because you know, you got pirates that do bad things, but pirates that do good things, like in One Piece. So yeah, it's kind of like a mirror image there, I guess. Anyway, they volunteer. They have an emotional moment in the house for a few days where they hang out together and live their best life. Also, we don't need to know what that involves, given their age. So it's like 4 years later, if I haven't mentioned. And then it's time to say goodbye and stuff. And yeah, Amy makes some promises to Cream and Dash in the background, and obviously Kylie as well eventually. Yeah, they go off and head off to this place. I can't remember what I called it, but it's an anagram for Ukraine. I'll just say it outright. But they go to this abandoned cabin through Tails' new plane, an X-Wing. And it's basically faster and more efficient. It goes at Mach 2. And they were able to get there in hours, but only enough to get there at night time. So, yeah, they managed to set up there, go into a cabin. There's an emotional moment where Amy confesses about sort of his family's concern about him and stuff, and tries to comfort him to sleep, even though she's supposed to sleep alongside Sonic. She claims to be too cold, so she wanted Tails to cuddle up to. And yeah, they do that. And then next day comes, they prepare the mission after breakfast, and then they have lunch, and then they go out. They use the Chaos Emeralds because it also uses energy. Also, I forgot to say there's an interaction with Tikal before that, with Tails sort of talks to her after a long time, like being a teenager. And basically, she really likes Tails. That's kind of the thing there, but there's kind of like an age gap there because she's about 12 years old. Well, used to be. That's the thing. But Tails mentioned it's like thousands of years, which is actually accurate. And you know, they can't date, and also he's already with 2 other people. And Tikal mentions that she actually made an image of him, and Tails is freaked out by that. Then she explains it like it's not actually him. She likes to hear his voice, and stuff. And I think she likes the physical image of Tails as well. So she basically only has him there as like comfort, and Tails actually understands. So he's like, okay, you can keep doing that. Yeah, so it's just a nice moment, really. Again, providing healing to essentially long-term trauma that Tikal wants on. Yeah, anyway, they go through the mission, they go into Suisar base. Also, Suisar is a language, I forgot to mention that. Suisar, I should say. Yeah. So they go into the base, they find things that was. But the other thing, I forgot to mention that. Basically, one of them has to find Phyllis, and the other 3 have to disable weapons because it could cause an all-out war, and it could destroy the planet. So the other 3 do that. But Tails is going to get Phyllis, and they have a stealth thing, they have a shield as well. But it uses energy, so it runs out. Tails eventually disables weapons in the space and then finds Phyllis in it and confronts her and stuff out some gods. And there's a sort of tense confrontation where Phyllis is being a complete arsehole to him. And eventually she's aiming a weapon at him, realising that he has stealthed like clothes rather from this device he created on the fly. Yeah, she aims at him and then Tails is sort of mocking the fact that she can't even shoot because she's that much of a carrot. And then she does shoot. Like, oof. And Tails like closes his eyes in a panic, not being able to move. And he feels something wrong. Opens his eyes and looks to the side and sees that his arm has been shot off. And it's just lying there on the ground in a pool of blood. And he's like shocked by this. Again, this is one I'm not really that happy with the ending. It also involves politics, but you know, I think there's definitely a way to improve it. But anyway, this causes him to be like really panicked because now he's like he can't embrace everyone. Like he can't embrace both Cream and Dash at the same time. It's like really heartbreaking, and he realizes that. But eventually, Phyllis turns her back on him, and Tails takes the opportunity to strike back and basically punches her with this electrifying glove he has, which stuns her and knocks her out eventually. And yeah, she's quite angry about this because she didn't want to be captured, obviously. But she does and tells us to teleport away with her. Only problem, he can't teleport. Like he can grab the Chaos Emerald and he can use his heart to basically transport Phyllis as well. But it's not teleporting him because it's a replica, and he decided that he needed the replica because it's more compromised than the original emerald, which the others have, although it's only being used by one, so they can get the others. And it sort of works like that. And yeah, it's like, it's a crazy moment, to be honest. So he's like panicking, there's guards coming to her room, it turns out there's an emergency thing. He also liked the language of Soy, so I forgot to mention that. As one of his parts of his plans. God, this has gone on for a while, I didn't mean for it to go on. It's so fucking hour almost, Jesus. Yeah, I guess it would be like the ending of this, but it's not for everyone. It'd be like a bonus, I suppose, but anyway. Guards come and he's like panicking, he closes his eyes, and suddenly they get knocked out. No surprise. And it's revealed that it's Amy. She decided to keep an eye on him, and she says that Kylie wanted this. She wanted her boy to survive, and yeah, it's kind of a sweet moment, sure. And then Amy saves Tails and brings Phyllis out with the Chaos Emerald's power. And then takes them to this place, the cabin where they were, and there's authorities there already to take her away. She contacted Bemp as well, it's part of the plan as well. So there's like actual authorities to arrest Phyllis, finally, for literal war crimes. And yeah, Amy rescues the others as well, like Sonic and Knuckles. And they all sort of appear there, and then Phyllis is being put in proper handcuffs. And tells his family arrives, including Cream and Dash and Kylie. Because they were sort of transported anyway, like overnight, just to make sure that they're there if anything happens. They didn't tell him that, but they wanted to. So that's why. And yeah, they arrive, they're happy that Tails is alive, but sad about the arm. Also, forgot to say Amy picks up the arm. It's very weird. The doctor's basically saying that his arm can't be reattached. Because basically the nerves are all dead and stuff, and it's all kind of fucked up. It's also burnt as well because it's a laser weapon. So part of his arm is burnt and soldered already. And then just suddenly someone else arrives saying like the arm can actually be attached again. And it's Sherry. And also there's a nice moment where Tails hugs her as well. And she looks at the arm and says it's repairable with the right technology. And yeah. But now we're seeing Phyllis waking up and being escorted to the van essentially. And there's some moments there where she's complaining about it and she's trying to lure Tails in to try and rescue her, saying that she loves him, and God, it's like so fucked up. Saying she loves him and is regretting her decisions and stuff. But Tails knows that she doesn't mean it, and he's kind of looking away and saying that he's disappointed in her. And then she changes her tone a bit, sort of being like, okay, screw you then. You were never my son. And Tails says, I'm glad. And he turns to Kylie, obviously, and Kylie walks up to him and hugs him, treats him like her son. And obviously as for this watch of this is the most fucking brutal part. She's like realising, like, oh, that was my son. Like, it's just such a crazy fucking moment. Just seeing her son being, a biological son rather, being kissed by someone that she actually used to know, that's the other thing. But is now deemed a traitor in her eyes. And stolen her son. No, not technically, because it's Tails' choice. Yeah, it's quite brutal. Anyway, so yeah, then we have a sort of time skip here. It's a mystery, but we see that there's wildlife in Scenario now, and there's humans in civilization, and we see that with a news report on this blue blur who suddenly appears on screen and stops to watch the news. And it's basically talking about this universal peace organisation that was created by someone as a 10th anniversary. So that gives you some idea. But yeah, they're talking about that. There's some interesting like law bits about how crime has decreased drastically, how women are enjoying their lives a lot more. There's obviously less darker things happening. And I think the other thing was that human and animal integration was always perfected, and animals are basically no longer predatory, so they're actually, in solidarity with one another. They're not attacking each other, they're gathering like the Cenarians would when they were previously animals and supporting each other. You see like families of foxes and rabbits and dogs and mice even together, and even birds. Again, all sort of becoming one, and it's thanks to this peace organisation. And then they thank the members of the peace organisation, and it's all 6 of the heroes. Like, holy crap. It's beautiful. And I'll see with the blue blur there, it's obviously Sonic. He's wearing yellow sunglasses. And he's like saying that it's great. Even though he's on the board itself, and also the humans to be announced for the board. He's like proud of Tails for coming this far, because he was the one who proposed it. Again, think back to when he was a teenager and talking about this. So he runs off, and people are like looking at him suspiciously, and the climate is actually very stable for this place, it turns out, for Scenario. As the news reporter says, and also there's a human news reporter there doing it. Forgot to mention that. Yes, basically it's turned into a utopia. They're living alongside humans and wildlife. And that also sort of gives an answer to like some of the things we've seen in the games as well, like Eggman 2. That's the interesting part of that. Anyway, Sonic goes to visit Tails at his home, sees Tails building an extension to the house. It's basically Kylie's house. But now he's living in that himself, and they're having a big adult discussion about various things. There's also some weird fucking jokes about being sterile. Don't know why I included that, but okay. Then he's still talking about, Tails is talking about rather how he's having another child. And also Monty is getting married to someone called Waylon, which is a funny reference if you know what it is. Yeah, I just have an update on that. Then what happens? They talk about the children stuff and how Sonic's asking how it works, basically, like because they don't have much time to sort of talk to each other with this Universal Peace Organisation. That's why he's there. They're talking about how life with like 3 parents is for that, and even like 3 grandmothers essentially. And yeah, he's talking about that and how it's actually quite normal, because even though it is a unusual thing for there to be a throuple, there is the fact that for anyone growing up with that, it seems normal, and that's just like an objective fact. Yeah. So I won't bore you with the other details in it, but eventually Tails makes a gesture through the window at someone. Sonic is confused. And Tails' arm is obviously back, I forgot to mention that. It's obviously attached again thanks to Sherry. The gesture is made, Tails suddenly flies up to the roof, despite being an adult. He's also got brown fur, I forgot about that. He develops brown fur around sort of certain parts, like his ears, the hands and feet. Obviously you can't see most of that. But he's still got that there. That's his sign of growing up. Then what happens? Yeah, as he flies up, he sits on the roof and watches as the front door opens, and a bunch of kids run out, especially saying Uncle Sonic. They run over to him and dogpile him, and yeah, all sort of laughing. And then four adults rather come up. Yeah, I did write that. There's Cream and there's Dash, there's Carly and there's Snow. They all grown up, obviously. Yeah, so does have a family. But one of the things about the children that's noteworthy is two of them are cats, one of them is a pigeon. And obviously Sonorians. Basically Tails had decided to adopt because one of the things with with like growing up with Kylie and stuff and seeing like what she did for him is like so inspiring to him. So he decided to adopt some children too, on top of making some. Yeah, it's quite sweet. But that's all how it ends. It's a very sort of touching story, I think, overall. That's all the point is about addressing real life problems and societal norms, coming to terms with things, and it's all sorts. There's definitely a lot to improve, though. It's not the best thing I've ever written, but still is quite touching. And yeah, I do like it for that reason. It's definitely a world I can expand upon, I think. Again, there's like a 4-year gap there, so obviously you can. And you could also go into like how they transport to Earth and stuff. You could go into how they dealt with Earth, because there's also other planets joining them in this universal peace organisation. Or UPO. Not sure if that's a bad term. Yeah, so that's Tales of Tales, the series. I'll try to remember to leave a download in the description. Maybe I can do that now, because I could just make it a text document. New text document. There we go, and I've got the thing open so I can share it from there. That's not it, thank you, Windows Explorer. That's not it either. For fuck's sake, just need to go into the thing then, I guess. But yeah, I'll share it. It's probably worth a read if you like fan fiction, or even just someone filling in the gaps with their own sort of. It's technically like theories, but what I think it should be anyway. I do really like the lore explanations in this. I think that's probably some of my best writing, because it's humorous, it's heartfelt as well, and it makes sense. That's the thing with that. You never get explained in Sonic about how they take on the power of like emeralds and stuff, or how some bonds even work. So here it's like, oh, it's actually addressed. You actually get the lore for it, and even the gloves and the shoes, of all things. I'm pretty insane writing this, to be honest, but I did it. 75,000 words, no, 70,000 words in total, rather. And there's also character sheets as well. I'll describe how the characters appear. Definitely be some that people like, I think. Anyway, that's Tales of Tales. So, thanks for listening, and yeah, let's move on. Well, I should technically this as an outro again, but thanks for listening to the podcast. Alright, it's time to make an outro for this episode of the podcast. It probably went on for a long time, but that's because of the fanfiction thing. And then again, I've already made one, haven't I? I don't know, actually. Well, if you get a second outro, guys, anyway.